Hey y'all, this is David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be doing a session recap video on Return of the Runefangs, Session 10. That's right, it's been 10, actually it's been 12 weeks since we started. We've only managed 10 sessions because we had a two-shot which Charles ran for us as a kind of Firefly space opera game. Which was very fun. I was going to say I should do a recap video of that, but I was only there for the first session, so I don't think I would be doing it justice if I were to ramble about it. But anyways, back to the matter at hand. Return of the Runefangs 10! So when we last left our daring heroes, they were in a duel on a sinking ship as La Guadalquivir had encountered a Tylean mercenary ship called the Bitch's Fury. Josh Pullman named that, not me. I just want to wash my hands of that name. But a big ship battle. Both ships sank beneath the waves, and we basically said, we'll find out who survives next time. We left it on a cliffhanger. I love cliffhangers. And as we rejoin our heroes, they're kind of waking up on a beach. Kevin is playing Sir Blaine Charrington. He's waking up on the beach, and there's nothing around him for miles except grasslands and the river and the beach. And Ulrich is waking up on a very similar beach, Actually, Ulrich was woken up by Buck Salder, who survived the sinking of the ship. Actually, Buck had a really fun scene last session. I forgot to mention it, where during the combat, a whole bunch of people were scrambling for the lifeboats, rowboats, hoping to use them as lifeboats. But they were stowed away, and they couldn't get them in time. Buck realized this, and he smacks his axe down into the deck. And he pulls off his armor, and he just dives into the sea, or into the river in this case. A mighty river such as the Mississippi. Huge river. So he had a pretty fun scene there, although brief. And we return to him waking up, Ulrich, and Buck has lost his boot. And of course, his shirt has been lost. He's this big, hairy guy, and he still has his ogre disc, his medallion that he took from an ogre he killed once, which is like his primary gimmick. Like, he loves that ogre disc. But he's waking up Ulrich, and Ulrich's looking around. There's just grassland for miles, and Ulrich's like, "Did anyone else make it? Did anyone else survive?" And Buck is like, "Oh yes, Gromnon has survived," and it's the dwarf in the full plate who was last seen clinging to his cannon, determined to go to the bottom with his cannon, and fighting off anyone's attempt to help him or remove his armor. So now he's sitting on the beach, still in full plate, although pieces have been torn off under the water, and he's covered in seaweed and slime, and he's just kind of sitting there. He had a great scene where Ulrich came over to make sure he was okay, and Buck has seen to his wound because he had a ballista through his leg, a ballista bolt, and Ulrich came to make sure he was okay. And Grom and him had this great scene where Grom is saying, "Why did I survive? I wanted to die. I wanted to go down with my cannon, and instead my son has died." He's just so distraught. He's lost everything. He had a great scene with Ulrich, because Ulrich is also a man who's lost almost everything in his life. So, and it really emphasized with him. Great role-playing scene. Meanwhile, Sir Blaine actually managed to find his squire, Pavel, and he revived him with some primitive, rudimentary CPR. So he managed to revive him, and they start walking towards the nearest city, which they know is going to be Averheim. And Ulrich and Buck and Grom, they start heading the same direction. And they actually find the wreck of the two ships that were stuck together. The cannon is torn off the front. Grom is very sad to see that. The cannon is indeed somewhere beneath the waves. But Buck walks back on the ship, and it's listening at this horrible angle. But he gets back on, and his axe is still stuck into the deck right where he left it. And he pulls the axe out. He's like, "This is a good axe. I shall keep it," which is, you know, a nice little piece of comedy. Meanwhile, they salvaged what they could out of the ship, which actually wasn't too much. Both ships were pretty badly destroyed as they sank down and got rocked around, you know, by the powerful currents of the River Aver. But as they're salvaging the ship, Blaine and Pavel actually catch up to them. So the party kind of, you know, they're united again, and they start trudging down the shore towards Averheim. And you can check out the map of Averheim on the Facebook group, and you can see how you know, flat it is, and it's like a Canadian equivalent would be like Alberta. It's a flat grassland. And there's nothing for miles and miles and miles except grass and more grass. And so they're walking along, and you know, they walk all day, and you know, they're sunburned and they're hungry, and they're fortunately they can drink from the river. It's fresh water, so they're not thirsty. But they're hungry and they're sunburned, and their feet are sore and blistered, and eventually they reach Averheim, and they pass through the gates, past the Pillar of Skulls, and there's some history behind that for those of you who know the setting. But Blaine actually strikes up a conversation with the Castellan, who greets them at the gate. Very minor kind of Castellan for such an important city. But the Castellan's name is Martin. He doesn't have a portrait yet, but I haven't done another round of portraits. So by the time this is published, maybe he will. Check the Facebook group to find out. Return of the Runefangs on Facebook. But Blaine manages to convince him like, I'm the great vampire slayer from Hornow. I am Blaine Charrington. So you need to put me up at the finest inn, and give us new clothes and new weapons and new armor, and feed us and get some horses for us. And he basically uses all of his political power to just push this onto the guy. And Martin's actually he's actually really happy to help. You know, he's saying, "Oh yes, you'll remember me, your friend Martin, who was there for you, and no one else was there for you. I know you won't forget such a good friend as me, Martin." And he's really kind of trying to put himself over. And Ulrich is just, you know, Ulrich's like, "Oh man, this guy is such a tool." And you know, Blaine is like, "Oh yes, I'll definitely remember you, Matthias." And he's like, "No, my name is Martin. And he's like, "Oh yeah." So fun minor NPC. We get them into the inn. This inn was named on the fly. It was called the Plump Goose. I invited the players to please rename that because it's not a very good name. They refused. So I made sure to really push the goose gimmick. You know, there's goose down, feather beds, and there's like a roast goose dinner waiting for them, and then at breakfast they're having goose eggs. So I really pushed the goose pretty hard on that. It made it, you know, kind of unique, kind of different from other inns. And actually, in this session, we thought last session was going to be Megan's final session, but she actually did make it for this one. She came in as kind of a co-GM, and she's playing a night staying at the inn Gregor Ullman of the most noble order of Bellerothon, a Pegasus knight who rides a Pegasus. So she came in, and we got Josh and Charles playing her squires. So Josh named his character Danny Orr after Aaron's legendary character from Legends of the Seven Sands. Aaron did a great job with that character, so Josh is kind of mimicking it to some very small degree here. Of course, the original Danny Orr was a wizard. This one is a squire, but the personality is the same, which makes it actually funnier because he has no magical powers. And then Charles is coming in as a character named, I believe his name is Aver, or Aber, or Abe. I can't quite recall what Charles' new character is named, for reasons which will become apparent. Perhaps it's just my memory. But they came in as his squires, and they're playing very, very, very similar characters. It's kind of a humble squires coming in as just these geeks, basically, these nothings, these 14-year-old boys who have very little skill or ability, and they're very naive. But they're coming in as Gregor's squires. And Gregor is telling them all about how his liege lord, his old liege lord, was killed by a manticore in the Black Mountains. Check the map to see where that is. And his new liege lord, the son of the old one, has placed an enormous bounty on manticore tails and stings. And that liege lord's sister, who's actually a Dane, a female knight, has actually already killed a manticore and claimed the tail for herself as vengeance for her father. And Gregor's fallen madly in love with this Dane. She's the toughest girl he's ever met. He loves that. And he offered her a Pegasus if she would consent to a marriage. And she refused. And he is even more in love now that he's been refused. No one refuses a Pegasus knight. So he swore that he's now going to go and slay a manticore to prove that he's worthy of her. So he's come to Averheim, the capital of the province, to gather some help in going off and slaying this manticore. So he starts talking to the party because he recognizes them. He recognizes Blaine, at least, because they don't live too far from each other. And it quickly becomes apparent who Ulrich is. He's lost his veil in the shipwreck, but he is still the veiled knight. So he's walking around with his disgusting, gash, his facial disfiguration, and it's visible to everyone. So he's in a rage the whole time he's there, right up until he went and actually got himself a veil pretty quickly after this breakfast. So yeah, they stayed at the inn for the night. At breakfast is when they met Gregor Ullman and Aver and Danior. So they're discussing with them, and Ulrich was saying how we've chased the Thieves Guild here, the Bridge Rats. So we've chased them here, and we're going to finish them off, and then we're heading north to Wertbad. And Gregor says, this is truly a noble quest. He's kind of a cheesy paladin-style knight. But he says, this is truly a noble quest. Allow me to assist you. And once I've come in, myself, my two squires, we shall help you to cleanse these rats from the face of the earth. And then you shall come and help me in my hunt for a manticore. And they kind of strike up this bargain. They don't have any local friends, and they've lost their ship, all their men at arms. So they kind of need some help here. So Gregor strikes up this deal with them, and while they're having breakfast, his squires head out to gather information. And when they come back, they've heard that the bridge rats are holed up at this tavern called the Hammer and the Anvil, and so they get together, and they head through town down into the bad part of town, past the old dwarf road, and they basically they came to the outside, and they're kind of loitering outside, deciding what to do. And the squires are both like, "Let us go ahead, and we'll scout it out and make sure it's okay." And they convince the rest of the party to wait outside, and they head in, and they have this great scene where they head in, and the rest of the party doesn't know this, but Josh's character Danior actually like swirls his hands around his head and casts off this magical veil, and he reveals that he's not actually a squire. He's not actually a 14-year-old boy. His true form, he's a much older character, and he's dressed kind of in black leather, and he's got daggers strapped to him, and opulent jewelry and a nice tunic as well. It's kind of like a noble. But he walks through the bar with Aber or Aver or Abe, Charles's character, and then we actually brought in a new player. So we've actually brought in our man John, who I just met recently, and we had this great scene where they were. We had this great scene where he came in, and John is like, "Yes, everything is arranged," and Josh is like, "Yes, they're waiting outside. Remember the plan, stick to the plan." And John heads outside, and then as John leaves, and John's playing this big barbarian character Ragnar, who more will be revealed about him shortly. But as he leaves, this big fat gangster like NPC gets up. He staggers to his feet, and he's got studded leather on, and he's covered in scars, strong Belwa style. He comes up to Josh and is like, "You have a lot of nerve coming here," and basically we cut then to the outside of the inn. And so Ragnar is coming out, and Ragnar approaches the rest of the group, and he says to them, I am Ragnar of Winter's Gardeners, the mercenary company, renowned through all of the world, and I have been hired by your great uncle to protect you, Ulrich Berengar. And Mike, who's playing Ulrich, is like, what? Like, who hired you? Lewin hired you? And he's like, "Oh no, Savage hired me." And then I look over at the table, and Charles is there. And Charles Savage is his character, and Charles is like, "What?" So we had some great fun metagaming in this session, where it appears Charles' character has done something Charles doesn't know about, or else this man is lying, and they're both equally possible. Plus, Josh is clearly actually in disguise. He's not a squire at all. Or he's a squire who can disguise himself as other things. Who knows? And now the players know this, but their characters don't, so that's fun metagaming as well. So anyway, Ragnar comes and he says, I'm here to help you. And Mike comes back and says, "Oh, okay, I'll accept your help. I trust Savage, and we've lost all our other allies in the shipwreck." And just as they're kind of negotiating this, you hear like a scream from inside the inn, and they all pull their weapons up, remember why they're there, and they rush into the inn, and we have this huge combat scene. Basically, this inn or tavern is a guild hall for these. for this thieves guild. So they come in, and this big, dirty thieves guild, bar brawl style combat. Really, really excellent combat. And you know, as soon as the party comes in, Josh is back to his old self, and they open the door, and Josh is underneath this big fat guy, just stabbing him, and Aver is on the fat guy's back, stabbing him in the back, and a huge brawl breaks out. The bar catches fire. The whole building's burned down. I don't think there was anything particularly noteworthy about the combat, but it was still a lot of fun for it. We had some people getting back tossed, and of course Ark is smashing heads with his mace, and Aber's showing off his agility as well, leaping over the bar and drop kicking people. But eventually they defeat all the thieves, and they're outside. Martin the Castellan arrives again. You know, your friend Martin, you remember me. And you know, Blaine is like, "Who are you again?" And he's saying how, I wish you told me. I could have reinforced your men as you were attacking the Hands of Fate Thieves Guild. And Arg is like, "Hands of Fate Thieves Guild? We came to destroy the Bridge Rats Thieves Guild." And Martin's like, "Oh no, this is the guild house of the Hands of Fate Thieves Guild. They've actually been giving the Bridge Rats a lot of trouble." And Arik's like, "What?" And he kind of looks over at Josh, who was the one who gave them this information about where the Bridge Rats were. And out of character, they know Josh is in disguise. He's not really a squire. But in character, they're like, "This poor squire has been misled. He's been used as the cat's paw to fool us, and we've actually done the Bridge Rats' dirty work." And so we had this reveal, and that was the end of the session. So really strong session. We got into some fun role playing, got into fun combat. We introed John's character. So a very successful session overall, and I believe that actually catches us up now to the current Return of the Runefangs 11, which I'm going into on this Saturday. I've just sat down and recorded like 4 of these because I haven't been able to do any videos in like 4 weeks. So now we're all caught up. For the next video, I should be wearing a different color shirt. But again, check out the Facebook group, portraits, maps, setting notes, all there. You talk to myself, talk to the actual players. I think it's a great tool, just to be able to see the portraits. It's going to be a great tool if you're following the story at all. So I'm going to be signing off now. Everybody have a good day in YouTube land. Ciao.